Hi, everybody. Ian Bremmer here, and a quick take to kick off your weekend, to wind down your summer. I'll be back in New York City next week. Hope you've had a great time off, or some downtime, relaxation, exercise, friends, family, everything that's important. And I thought I'd talk a little bit about the state of capitalism, because it is taking a lot of hits these days in the United States, the country that historically has said that it's the most successful because of the free market. And yet, for lots of reasons, that is not what the future looks like. A big announcement in the past few days is that the United States government is taking 10% equity stake in Intel, not the most successful company in the United States, but certainly in a very strategic industry, the production of semiconductors, a major beneficiary of the CHIPS Act in the Biden administration. And for those subsidies, U.S. government didn't get anything directly in return, and now it's time to pay the piper. It's kind of analogous to what Trump said to the Ukrainians in the early days on the critical minerals deal. You know, the U.S. was providing a lot of aid. Well, now not happy that that was aid. That should be turned into an equity stake that the U.S. government has in its critical minerals production capabilities, ownership, and the rest. The issue is not about Intel per se. Trump administration certainly plans on doing a lot more of this. It's about how much intervention you want to see from the government into what corporations do, into what market outcomes are going to be. It's the same reason why the U.S. is much less interested in free trade, is much less interested in having multilateral trade agreements with other countries around the world, or keeping tariffs low. Instead, much greater focus on wanting to bring more manufacturing production back to the U.S., even though the U.S. hasn't done manufacturing at scale in a very long time. Now, whatever you think about how sensible these policies are, and I'm very mixed. I think some of them make sense. There are some big subsidies of U.S. strategic industries that make a lot of sense, especially as you're trying to ensure that you have a competitive edge against other countries in the world that are doing that at scale. I think there are other places where this is backwards looking, like on the manufacturing side. That's not what I think the future of U.S. industry and a knowledge economy and a tech economy should be. I don't think it'll be successful. And there are other places where they make sense, these policies, if you could do it consistently over the long term. And that's not what the U.S. political system looks like right now. It's whiplash every election cycle. And that means you're very not long term in your policies. But the big problem, the big reason why this is happening right now is because so much of what's supposed to be capitalism in the United States isn't capitalism. So much of what corporations, major multinational corporations, are interested in is seeking advantage through capturing the political process, through using lobbying dollars to get a entrenched advantage that other companies, whether in the U.S. or outside, don't have. And that's not capitalism. That's oligarchy. That's kleptocracy. It's also not capitalism when you take profits as your due because you've been effective, but when there are losses, when there are costs that come directly from your business model that hurt the public, that you say, well, that's not on us. That's for the government to take care of. And that's true whether you're a tobacco company that lies about the health challenges, the cancer that comes from your product. It's true if you're a fossil fuel company that obscures the impact of carbon being emitted into the atmosphere. It's true if you're a social media company that is indifferent to and refuses to take responsibility for psychological damage that happens to young people, for example. If you are responsible for profits, you are also responsible for losses. That is capitalism. That is a competitive environment where you don't need the government to give you a special break. You need a level playing field in your country and globally. Now, it is certainly true there are other countries, many other countries in the world that have nothing close to a level playing field, that have different political and economic systems. And most importantly, that's true of China. And China has been successful over the past 50 years, not through free market capitalism, but state capitalism, where the state government is the most important actor in the economy and provides massive long-term subsidies, picks favorites with the intention of shifting the playing field in its own advantage. And there's no question that China's ability to make itself into an electro state at a time when the United States is still, and in fact is expanding as a petro state in oil and gas, has been because the state has driven that outcome. And in response to China and other countries being more successful at benefiting their own companies and their own national champions, the United States is increasingly leaning into a state capitalist model. But it's also doing so because so many average Americans, working class, middle class Americans, feel like they were on the wrong end of the equation when major American corporations got what they wanted and benefited themselves at a time that they did not. Now, my concern here is twofold. First, that long-term, the United States will not be successful at state capitalism because the United States does not do long-term well as a government, does long-term pretty well in terms of corporate planning in some sectors, and certainly small and medium enterprises, those that are family-owned, founder-owned, you name it, that have longer-term incentives, yes. But the U.S. government is not oriented in that way, and that's a problem. Secondly, is that so much of the benefits of state capitalism are going to the wealthiest. It is basically much more of a giveaway for those that are capable of paying for access to the administration, to the powers that be. That's been a problem in the U.S. for decades. It is a problem that is only getting worse. And as that happens, it is precisely the lower and middle class Americans that are going to end up taking it on the chin. They're the ones that are going to end up with less in Medicare and Medicaid. They're the ones that won't have their Social Security paid for. They're the ones that will get displaced by newer technologies that the corporations are happy to embrace for their own profit line, but not happy to take responsibility for those that had worked for them for a long term. So I do believe that the answer ultimately is more capitalism, not less, but it's capitalism that runs in a competitive environment where no one gets to capture the political process and where losses are seen as responsibilities of corporations just as profits are. We're very far from that. That's why so few people believe in it. It's why we have far-right populism in the United States that's very anti-capitalist in orientation, and we're about to have the rise of far-left populism that feels much the same way. When globalism is seen as the same as globalization, we have a problem, and it's not a surprise when the pitchforks come out. That's it for me, and I'll talk to you all back in New York next week.